I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents.
Hard times are hitting close to home, and that includes the church.
The economic situation has affected everyone, the whole world. We'll get ourselves correctly positioned to do what's really necessary.
How's the diocese doing? An exclusive interview with Bishop Caggiano.
We really need now as a diocese to really be creative, reimagine many of the things that we have done in the past.
And meet a nun with a can-do attitude.
Any human being, no matter how he or she looks like, any human being is a treasure.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Some positive news for the economy today. Jobless claims in the U.S. fell by 26,000 last week.
Nice.
And even with that, though, there is no doubt about it, there are still tough times ahead.
Unfortunately, one Federal Reserve Bank president says the economy is improving, but still fragile. And that situation has companies basically reevaluating their futures. And it's something that isn't only happening on Wall Street.
Absolutely not. And we found out as much yesterday when we attended a gathering in Douglaston, Queens, to mark the beginning of a new pastoral year for the Brooklyn Diocese. With unemployment levels at record highs across the country, companies and charities alike fear the worst has not come to pass. Bishop DiMarzio, fresh from his surgery, delivered a message of hope to the employees of the Brooklyn Diocese as they look toward the future.
It's wonderful to be back directing the pastoral work of the diocese. Summer was a time of recuperation, but now September we're back doing everything we need to do. The economic situation has affected everyone, the whole world, and certainly the church also has had to have some early retirements and layoffs, unfortunately. But we'll get ourselves correctly positioned to do what's really necessary, and hopefully someday we can expand again.
As Fortune 500 companies continue to lay off thousands, the parishes and charities of the Brooklyn Diocese are also feeling the pinch of the recent cutbacks.
Of course it has been hard for all of us because there were a lot of layoffs. We don't like to see anybody lose their jobs, especially our co-workers. We're doing a lot of programs out there to help the community, and I do feel hopeful. I know we have to cut corners, but at least with prayer we can do it.
There has been a decrease in donations. However, now that we have a new structure put in place, I think that it'll come around fairly quickly, and we'll be back on track. With prayer comes hope, and I think that there's better days ahead.
Well, we're always people of hope. We never want to lose hope. I think as we look at what's happening in the diocese, we have a lot of great hopeful signs. The new look at the net, our television station, is a wonderful addition where we see many people are tuning in. That's a great means of evangelization. The parishes themselves. So we see a vibrancy that is a good sign for the future.
Bishop DiMarzio said that we have to choose our priorities very carefully, more careful than ever, because now their resources are limited. So in that sense, we will keep capturing souls of men through our message, and we will do it the best way we can.
The common theme of the afternoon was that better days are coming. Bishop DiMarzio reinforced that idea and urged diocesan employees to keep the faith.
Well, we thank the employees for the wonderful hard work they do all the time, day in and day out. And we ask them just to keep up the good work that has accomplished so much in the past and will, I think, continue to accomplish much in the future.
Well, the Bishop of Brooklyn, Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio.
And we'll have a little bit more on that later on in the show.
I actually had a chance to sit down with Auxiliary Bishop Frank Caggiano and found out it's not just a money issue. We'll have that interview with Bishop Caggiano just a little bit later on.
But stay tuned just ahead on Currents. Come together. I can't sing very well. It's not just a Beatles song. It's what President Obama wants both parties to do on health care. We'll have that and, of course, the rest of the day's headlines. And
religious minorities try to survive in Pakistan.
welcome back to Currents. I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Coming up in just a bit, as one former mayor was known to say, how am I doing? Well, we'll find out how the Diocese of Brooklyn is doing when I talk with Auxiliary Bishop Frank Caggiano.
But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. In a rare prime time address to the nation, President Obama asked lawmakers from both parties to come together to pass a health care plan. Obama said it was bogus to claim that his plan would allow federal funds to pay for abortion. Meanwhile, a spokesman for National Right to Life says under the president's plan, government subsidies could still be used to pay for termination of a pregnancy. One of the biggest names from the priest abuse scandal is fighting his conviction. Defrocked Boston priest Paul Shanley was convicted based on victims who claimed they had repressed memories. Almost 100 experts have submitted a friend of the court brief claiming the concept of repressed memories is just folklore. Meanwhile, another group of experts, well, they filed their own brief saying that such memories are legitimate. From Pakistan, 4 men are under arrest and accused of being involved in a fatal attack against Christians last month. 7 people died when groups of Muslims attacked a Christian town, claiming the Quran had been defiled. And as we now hear from Rome reports, attacks on religious minorities have been an ongoing problem.
Pakistan is one of a handful of countries in the world that calls itself an Islamic Republic. It means that Islam, the majority religion, is a cornerstone element of Pakistan's government. As a result, minority religions in Pakistan, like Christianity, are marginalized, at least indirectly. Moreover, so-called blasphemy laws forbid anyone from disrespecting the Muslim religion. Insulting the Quran or the Prophet Muhammad, for example, could result in prison or the death penalty in Pakistan. But some extremists are using these laws as a pretext to attack Christians, often in the most violent of ways. Father Pascal Paulus, a Dominican priest from Pakistan, says the violence is getting increasingly worse.
Lately we have faced, like in 1 month, we have faced 3 different places that there were great violence, like 8 people were burnt alive.
Father Pascal has seen the violence against Christians in his country firsthand. He came to Rome to raise awareness about the persecution of Christians in Pakistan and tell how blasphemy laws are being used unfairly against them.
We want to request the people, the local organizations and international organizations to raise their voices for the amendment of the law 295B and C in order that the people could live in dignity, respect.
About 2.8 million people, just over 1% of the total population of Pakistan, is Christian, making it a vulnerable demographic to extremist groups in the country. Christians like Father Paulus are giving a voice to Pakistan's voiceless majority. Raising international awareness might just be the first step in easing tensions between Christians and Muslims in that country.
The men arrested in last month's incident are said to be members of 2 banned extremist groups.
From the Philippines now, the son of former President Corazon Aquino says he will run for the seat once held by his mother. Benigno Aquino went on a retreat with Catholic nuns to consider his future. His mother died last month after battling cancer. Well, apparently it's not the choice of a new generation, at least for some Florida Christians. Reports say a number of Florida churches are boycotting drinks bottled by Pepsi because of what the churches call anti-family activities. The Community Issues Council advises around 50 Florida congregations on issues that it says conflict with traditional Christian values. The council's president says the churches are boycotting to protest Pepsi's acceptance of homosexuality. Well, a soap opera actress is saying she was recently fired because of her religious beliefs. Patricia Masseri says that she was not let go from the soap opera One Life to Live because of poor performance, but because she objected to a gay storyline that had been written for her character. Masseri told Fox News that her character's actions went against her belief system. Now, an ABC spokesperson says the company is not aware of Masseri's claim, but did say a claim of religious discrimination would be frivolous.
All right, well, stay tuned. There's much more current straight ahead.
And coming up, Bishop Caggiano on Brooklyn's greatest resource.
Well, the strength of this diocese has always been and continues to be its people. Generous, committed, enthusiastic, joyful.
Welcome back to Currents. Earlier on in the show, we heard from Bishop DiMarzio and others about the state of the Brooklyn Diocese.
We sure did. Times are tough, and it's a reality that's not just being felt in Brooklyn and in Queens, but every place, from Fortune 500 companies right on down to nonprofits.
Unfortunately, very true. And to get a clearer picture of the state of the diocese as it begins another pastoral year, I sat down earlier in the week with Auxiliary Bishop Frank Caggiano. Well, Bishop Caggiano, thank you so much for being here today. We really
pleasure.
Appreciate you
My
joining
pleasure.
us. Well, for those who might not know, let me ask you first of all, what do we mean when we say a pastoral year?
A pastoral year is basically, in our diocese, mimics the academic year, in so much it's the 12-month period that would start with the beginning of school and go right through the consecutive summer. So it's from September through August.
Right. So basically kind of the diocesan version of a fiscal year.
In a sense.
Right.
It's really the year of the activities that we plan in the schools and in the parishes that really gives life to everything we do as a diocese.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, as you know, I mean, it's no big secret or anything like that things have been tough economically, I think, for everyone across the board in the country. Where does the diocese stand as we begin this new pastoral year?
Well, you said it very well. I think the state of the economy and is very much mirrored in the state of the diocese, as so much as it's a time of real economic challenge. And the bishop is doing all he can to ensure that we are good stewards of all the resources that the people of God have been so generous to give to us to make sure our mission, particularly evangelization, goes forward. Having said that, we really need now as a diocese to really be creative, reimagine many of the things that we have done in the past so we can do it as effectively and as financially responsibly as possible. There is a major program that the bishop has announced last week, this parish giving program, this increased support, which is really meant to ask everyone to be good stewards and to be able to give back as generously as possible their resources and also their time, their talent, but particularly their financial resources to allow the parishes the money that they need to be able to flourish.
Right.
Because really it's the parishes that are the bedrock of our diocese.
Right.
So to the extent that that's possible, it'd be great.
Very good. And that was actually going to be one of my questions for you was what can parishioners do to help out during these difficult times?
First and foremost, what they have always done, which is to pray, to offer their prayers and support for all of our brothers and sisters in the church and even outside the church that have been adversely affected by the downturn. Their needs are essential. But also, as I mentioned, if it is at all possible for people to be more generous, to be able to give of their time, to give of their resources, to help the church, that would also be essential for a long-term plan.
Right. Now, I'm sure you've heard the news about the Archdiocese of Detroit. I believe they've laid off, I think, something like a third of their staff. Do you foresee anything like that happening here in the Brooklyn Diocese?
Well, we have already begun to downsize diocesan operations. Under Monsignor Bracken's leadership, we had a voluntary separation program which allowed really essentially employees to retire early, mostly with full benefits, to be able to pare down the workforce of the diocese, which has really asked a sacrificial giving of those who are left behind to be able to do more, and they have responded really very, very generously. There have also been further reductions. Last week and this coming week, there'll be other individuals whose jobs are being abolished. So we're going down the same route, but not as dramatically, thank God.
Right.
But we are downsizing also as well.
Right, okay. Well, I think, I believe it was, now, I was telling you this before we went on, I'd already written down Father Harrington's name. Father Harrington, you know, Father Kieran Harrington is the Vicar for Communications for the diocese. He had said something last week, and which I'll get to in a second, but I just got the email that he is now Monsignor.
Monsignor Kieran.
So I had to make that change in my notes. But Monsignor Harrington had made a comment that there are probably some rough months ahead for the diocese. What do you think he meant by that?
Well, I think it is in part the recognition that some parishes are going to have a very difficult time meeting their financial needs. And also, from the diocesan point of view, the fact that the diocese for many years has been very generous, giving subsidies. Over 35 parishes are on subsidy, getting aid to be able to support their programs. Some of that will have to be pared back simply because the diocese doesn't have the resources. So there will have to be a general accommodation. And that's difficult because change is difficult for everyone. And I think with the right spirit, keeping our eyes focused on the Lord, I think we'll be able to do it. But he's right. It will not be easy.
Right. Where are, and you kind of touched on it here, so it leads into this. What are maybe some of the strengths of where the diocese is really strong and maybe some weak spots as well?
Well, the strength of this diocese has always been and continues to be its people. Generous, committed, enthusiastic, joyful. We come from all over. And yet there is that magic about Brooklyn that brings people together and just makes it work. It just works, which is great. So that's our strength. And there are many programs that we've launched. Preserving the vision for our schools. The first year has turned out to be very successful, particularly in the new academies that we're going to give birth to in the next few days. But also evangelization efforts, the efforts of the communities and the different ecclesiastical movements, a lot of exciting parish programs. Those were all the good things. Right. The challenges are perennial ones. Resources. We also desperately need to continue to pray for vocations, priesthood, diaconate, religious life. We need to raise more lay leaders in our parishes, because we have many generous. We need many more, because the needs are many, particularly among the young, among the newly married, to be able to give them support. So it's a time of promise and challenge.
Right, right. Very well. Well, just to wrap it up here very quickly, what role do you see the net playing in all of this as we go forward in a new pastoral year?
First of all, I think the net is a tremendous blessing to our diocese on many levels, but preeminently because the net provides a direct way to communicate, educate, motivate, challenge, and bring people a sense of community and hope that very few dioceses have. It's a tremendous blessing, and I'm very glad to be of help in it.
Well, thank you very much, Bishop Caggiano, and we thank you, and we look forward to having you here again. We really
My pleasure. My
Thank
pleasure.
You. Well, Auxiliary Bishop Frank Caggiano there, and we will hear from him next week. He's going to be back, and he'll be talking about preserving the vision of Catholic schools.
Very nice, and nice props to the net at the end there.
Of course, got to wrap it up all in a nice little bow, you know.
Well, I think that a lot of what he said is what people have always sort of done in tough times, is come together, especially in church communities like the Catholic Church. But you think about it, people lived through the Great Depression. My Italian grandparents lived through coming in through Ellis Island and living through the Great Depression, and that's what they did. They went to church, they helped each other out, they fed each other, you know, they acted as a community.
Right, and you know, I mean, even right now, you look at the numbers and you can look at facts and figures, and you can hear from pundits all day long talk about if the economy is on the path to recovery and things in which the signs are looking better, but you still hear that there are several rough months ahead, no matter what sector of the economy you happen to fall into.
Right, well, at least it's perhaps a brighter horizon.
Right, exactly.
Stay tuned, there's more current straight ahead.
Blessed are the poor. That's this nun's motto.
My role in matters of the church is to help the church recover that sense that we follow a poor man.
Finally, on a night when we are looking at these tough economic times, we visit somebody who's reaching out to the very least fortunate among us.
Her name is Sister Anna DeLuco, and she created Sure We Can. It's a redemption center where New Yorkers can recycle cans, bottles, and plastic in exchange for money. And tonight, she tells us her story as our eyewitness.
I am actually working at Sure We Can. I had been co-founder, and at present, I act as coordinator of the project. But basically my role is more the human aspect of it than the business or work aspect. I can be invited to any house and I can share friends rich and poor. I don't mind that, but I like to follow. My decision is to follow the Jesus who chose to be poor and live among the poor. The real richness of the church are the poor. So I feel my role in matters of the church is to help the church recover that sense that we follow a poor man, a man who said, I have no place where to lay down my head, and a man who was always sharing the table and walking with poor people, with excluded people, with sinners. So we have to recover that role. Those who have everything, they don't need God, so they live without God, literally, even if they go to church and they whatever, but in their daily life, God has nothing to do. But the people whom I relate, God has a lot of things to do with them. In my early years, there was that famous sentence that we are evangelized by the poor. It's not that we go to evangelize the poor. And that sentence, it became very much real in my life. It's not much how I evangelize other people, but how they evangelize me. I'm so thankful for all this openness of my mind by being with them. Any human being, no matter how he or she looks like, any human being is a treasure, and it's the real treasure of our society. So not to discard, not to dismiss any human being as worthless, as not to reject, because within any appearance, if only you have the chance to accept, to love, and to open the door to that heart, you can find great treasure. It's invaluable. It's something which only human beings can give. And that gives such a great joy that I want to always look for that treasure in the inner self of any human being, ourselves and others. We are great.
And what a treasure she is, Sister Anna DeLuco, our eyewitness. And we also had a chance to talk with Sister Anna about the Sure We Can Redemption Center. We'll bring you that story later on this month.
Well, I tell you what, talk about humility. I mean, that is, I think, just in a few words there, she really kind of captured what the Christian life is all about.
Absolutely. I mean, I have tears in my eyes, you know, just what she was saying. And it's what my mother always said. She's a doctor, and she's always worked with the poor and for the poor, and she always wanted to do that. It's where she feels the most connected, the most grounded, and kind of what she was saying. They're evangelizing her.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, just as she said, no matter what a person looks like, that person is a treasure, and should be treated as such. And sometimes we forget that. I mean, we really do, and get caught up in all of the things going on in the world, and we forget it.
And we're the ones that lose because of that.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, that's it for this edition of Currents. Now, coming up tomorrow, we do have a special edition of the show. It's September 11th, and we'll look back 8 years to that fateful day. Can't believe it's been 8 years already. We'll bring you remembrances from around the city and from people who experienced 9/11 firsthand.
We have all that on tomorrow's edition of Currents. And remember, you can always catch us online at netny.net/currents. You can also send us, or follow us rather, on Twitter. The address there is twitter.com/currentsny.
You can tweet us.
Yeah.
For all of us here at Currents, I'm Matt McClure.
All right, Tweeple. I'm Francesca Maxime. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.